Good morning. It's the A to Z Podcast. Zach Jackson, Andre Knott. A to Z Podcast.com, Facebook.com/A to Z Podcast. Shout out to Scene, to the Honeymoon Grill, to American Fireworks, as always, for helping, easy for me to say, make this thing happen. Shout out to you guys for listening and helping this thing grow.
That's not like you were trying to get 4 helpings of food. That's
you got hungry. I got to tell you, I haven't eaten dinner yet, so I'm a little out of whack. I have priorities in life. I did have something I want to start with, and before we play a specific round of Glory Days, I just got to say this because I was thinking about this the other day, and then I had a friend hit me up last night, late, kind of with semi-serious discussion, and it turned this way. So this is not a specific American Fireworks Glory Days story. This is just in general. You know when you're young, Dre, and you hear your dad, your uncle, your coworker, and they're talking. They're either mad about something or they're talking about something, and they say 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 25 years ago, and you roll your eyes and you're like, how could that be possible? And then you get to our age, and just about every goddamn story is 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 25 years ago. So, like I said, my friend was asking me a specific question on what I knew about something last night, and I said, you got to understand, when I did this, it was 20 years ago. And then I was like, holy hell. And then this afternoon, the Buffalo Bills announced Derek Anderson as their starting quarterback for Sunday. Oh. It was 11 years ago that he went to the Pro Bowl. So I'm like, well, at least I have our lead to our podcast.
Yeah, but think about that. And shout out to DA. Because imagine that. He's been in the league 12, 13, 14 years
2005, now? So this would be year 14.
I mean, and God bless him, he's been as a backup quarterback, and he's been a caddy most of the time, which he'll appreciate because he loves golfing. But he does have a Pro Bowl on his resume. He was the perfect backup for Cam Newton for all those years. Cam Newton will tell you. Yeah, having Ken Dorsey. Ken Dorsey.
Yeah, not exactly the same guy there.
Boy, Ken Anderson was the quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals 20, 30 years ago. So I'll get Ken Anderson and Ken Dorsey. I think Ken Anderson's arm is probably stronger than Ken Dorsey, to be honest, even today. And shout out to Ken Dorsey because he's a great guy, intelligent dude that'll probably be a head coach sooner than later. But the Bills should have started Anderson weeks ago. The kid they signed, they ruined. That was the banana that was way, way, way too green to be playing on an NFL football field. And they may have ruined him already. I hate to say that.
Yeah.
But you don't see a lot of these guys bounce back after what the Bills put Allen through so far.
Well, I can't argue with what you said, but here's the problem. Nathan Peterman doesn't belong in the NFL, right?
No, he don't deserve to be there.
Yeah, right, and that's why DA started. I mean, they just brought in DA a week ago, and that was just to tutor Allen. I mean, they're similar guys in that their arm strength. Derek was able to add a little bit to his game, not too much. I think he would be the first to tell you he's had an incredible run in terms of being around the league, having the experiences, making money. He got several shots to be a starter. Only one of them worked out. That was for one season. That's just how it is. And I know I've told this story to you before, and I've told it here, but we'll play American Fireworks Glory Days with this. In 2011, when Cam was a rookie and was drafted, and of course he was this controversial figure because Auburn paid $200,000 for him, and obviously that was a discount. And they won this.
Alabama would have paid $300,000.
Yeah, no, I mean in retrospect, you'd have paid 5 times that, and it still would have been a discount. But obviously this was before people were giving these spread quarterbacks, quote unquote. You can add whatever context you want to that, any credit. And I went down to Cincinnati and covered a preseason game, and Cam looked bad. He just, he wasn't there yet. They hadn't unleashed their offense yet. And I went down to the Panthers locker room after the game, and DA, who I had known for years, grabbed me and he said, "Let me tell you something. Be smart." I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Don't believe any bullshit you saw tonight or anything you hear." He said, "This kid is special." He said, "If I ever told you one thing, just believe me, this kid is special." And at the time it was like, okay, You're bullshitting. But I think he was onto something there.
DA knows. And I think that's the one thing that we have to be careful of. In this day and age where it's so easy to reach out to the athletes and talk shit about them and talk about how bad they do at certain things, or, oh, you sucked, you didn't hit that free throw. Or where you tell reporters or sideline people or, how easy their job is. Be careful, because usually people that you're watching on TV and you're paying for they're paying their salary, they're pretty special at what they do, even if they are the worst of the bunch that you're watching at that point in time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm reminded every Sunday when you go in these stadiums and you see these guys and you think, he stinks, but, I mean, the biggest, fastest in the world are playing out here. I mean, guys of tremendous accomplishment don't make it in the NFL. You know, all Americans at the college level, the best of the best, don't make it in the NFL. And the NBA season tipped off tonight, and we know how hard that is. Guys that are incredible players at every level their whole lives, and you see the best of the best there. Hey, one more thing, speaking of American fireworks and glory days. We touched on this earlier in the week, how Massillon scored 101 on a team from Pennsylvania, how it made national headlines, how we didn't want to go too far into it because although it seemed outrageous, unnecessary, and avoidable, we didn't really have any details. And I still don't. I mean, my opinions are what they are on it. But if you guys don't know about Massillon, like, it's basically...
If you don't know, now you know.
You know, for going back to Paul Brown being the coach there in the 30s, it's been an NFL-like program. And they have an NFL-like stadium, and they have outrageous expectations and standards and traditions, and you can take outrageous to multiple meanings, which I meant for you to do. But American Fireworks works every one of their home games, Dre, and brings enough fireworks to celebrate 10 touchdowns. Okay? The particular crew that went out last Friday was back in Hudson by the third quarter because they were out of touchdowns, but Massillon still wasn't done scoring them. That's all.
Yeah, no, you hit it on that. If you don't know, you know. You know? Anyway, I don't even want to touch it still. I love high school sports. I love this time of the year. I know I said this in the spring, but spring baseball starting, Final Four, March Madness. I love that time of the year. I love this time of the year because football becomes real. You can't hide who you are much longer, whether it's NFL, college. Like, I was talking to a friend that's a big Michigan fan, and it makes me question how much of a fan. You know what? I shouldn't even say that. I'd just be being a smartass. We all got friends that are Steelers fans, that are, whatever, Massillon fans, Open, graduates, Michigan fans, whatever. That's what makes life so fun for me. And this fan, this friend that's a Michigan fan, and we don't even try. I try not to even talk Michigan football with them most of the season because our conversations get so ridiculous and we lose track of what we're really talking about. So we were texting about something else the other night, and finally I was like, "So how are things?" He's like, "Hey man, Wolverines ain't that bad." And I was like, "Yeah, they look good. Their defense is impressive." I go, and the quarterbacks finally like they got a quarterback room. O-line looks good. I go, they look pretty good. They got no chance to be a top 4 team. I think Notre Dame's better, but they look pretty good. And we kind of left it at that. But you could tell it was that lingering, like, you're going to throw a punch or not? That was kind of, you know what I mean? Like, so really, you're going to leave it at that? You're not going to have one smart-ass thing to say? And I kind of said, well, that McCaffrey sure looked fast on that one play. That other young quarterback looks good. What are they going to do if Shea comes back for his next year? Which one of them are going to lose? And it was like just that was all it took to trigger him. Our quarterback room is finally looking real, and now you want to screw it all up. I'm like, hey, man, big-time football, somebody leaves if Shea stays. That's all I'm saying. I go, don't get mad at me. That's just how the game works, right? And it's funny to say that because I look at Alabama and their quarterback situation. You look at the Clemson situation, and you look how that worked out. And somehow or another, the Ohio State quarterback situation so far, knock on wood, has worked out the best for all involved. When you see what Joe Burrow's doing down at LSU, you see what the kids doing here in Columbus. And I just think with the way we prop up quarterbacks, and we didn't plan on talking about this just came from the top of my head, but I have been wanting to talk about it. It's amazing to me now, and I know the generation that's a little above Zach and I, it drives them crazy because competition is what we were all raised on. But we have all these freaking 7-on-7 camps, all these quarterback camps, all these elite 10s, elite this, flag this, do this, play with the funky helmets on. And I love it because it's supposed to be helping all these kids, but it's making all these quarterbacks think that if they don't start in a top 20 program, well, then you just leave. The Joe Burrow situation, very different than others because Joe Burrow was there for, 4 years.
Yeah, this is his 4th year in college. Yes.
Right. I don't blame Joe Burrow, so I don't want people to lump that together. But the Clemson situation did bother me earlier this year from all sides, Zach. I get what Dabo's doing, and I get how recruiting works. I get you recruit these kids and you tell them things. What it scares me, and the Michigan situation's funny because for me, I want Michigan to be halfway decent. I want that game to mean something. That's just me. I'm never going to pull for Michigan against Ohio State, but I want Ohio State and Michigan to be bananas every year. For that means Michigan needs to win 10, 12 games and then lose in Columbus or in Ann Arbor when they come. And I was saying to my friend, Michigan is back because they finally have a real problem after this season if Shea stays. And I said that, and I almost bit my tongue because I'm thinking, Jesus, I'm buying into what these kids are making us buy into suddenly.
Well, there's no if he stays. I mean, he's staying. Nobody in the NFL wants that guy right now. But, yeah, I know what you're saying. And, look, it's simple math. There's 130 Division I teams, so there's 130 of those quarterback jobs, right? They're precious. There's 10 elite programs, give or take, so there's 10 of those quarterback jobs. And I think everybody in Ohio and around Ohio State is happy for Joe Burrow. He made the right move. People are excited for him, and he has energized that LSU team. When's the last time they had a quarterback, Dre? Rohan Davey? Remember his fat ass?
Rohan Davey! That was like 5, 10, 12 years ago. Actually, it was their number one pick back when Joe Thomas came out. It was like they had a quarterback that really – and fat boy that got on the lean.
See why no one ever invites me out of my mom's basement? Because I come out and I talk about obscure quarterbacks.
Rohan Davey. Rohan Davey was a 5'11", 225-pound, linebacker-ass-looking quarterback.
Right.
That could win, though. Yeah.
And, I mean, Jamarcus was a thing for about 6 weeks, and Phil Savage and the Raiders tried to make him a thing, but he wasn't a thing. You know, I mean, he was
– They had another –
ability-wise,
They had another guy. Yeah. They had somebody else after Jamarcus, though, that was decent.
Well, they've had guys come in that were, like, the recruit of recruits. And
right. But you're right. Burrow has been the best, though.
Ryan Perrilloux comes to mind.
That's Brian Perrilloux. That's who I was thinking of. He was like all Sports Illustrated, all Gatorade, all those things. It's just funny to me because I've paid a little bit more attention to these, like the Trent Dilfer quarterback. You know, like there's like a quarterback club for fucking 15-year-old kids, 16-year-old kids. I don't think that's a good thing. But it's the thing.
No, it's not. It's not. It's a little bit dangerous, however. Clearly, we got a quarterback shortage, right? Clearly, these guys that do attain this level and do play at these programs give themselves a situation to be set up for life, whether they make it in the NFL or not, right? And, I mean, they're putting up numbers like never before. I'm glad that we accidentally stumbled into this. We haven't talked much college, and I think college football, I think that's just been circumstantial. It certainly hasn't been by design. We've been talking baseball, we've been talking Browns, we've been dancing around to other things. I think it's too early to jump to conclusions, Dre. I think when you mentioned Michigan, there's one thing you can draw, and that's way back in week 1, them and Notre Dame was obviously a bigger / better game than people thought, right?
Yeah, and the Notre Dame quarterback situation has changed the game as well.
Yeah, it sure has. It was clearly the right move. I mean, but beyond that, and Alabama just being flat out dominant, I still don't think you can. You know, the big games are ahead. Things are going to sort themselves out. Michigan looks like a real team. They're going to have to get to handling success. They're going to have to play better. And then if they're ever really going to live up to it, they're going to have to come to Columbus and win, which they haven't done in a long, long, long time since Rohan Davey was at LSU.
Right? 12, 15 years ago.
Yeah, so it's an interesting time in college sports for a lot of reasons. And college basketball has been on trial, quite literally here. I don't like what Coach K is doing with his total denial, but I get it. First of all, it's always been his style. He and others hold him like some holy person. We know the truth. I think in general, people want college athletes to get paid. People understand Nick Bosa's decision, which just came down yesterday as we record this.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, and as I told you, I don't have a take on that. Except that I do. It's real simple. Nobody should be surprised, and Nick Bosa's doing what's best for him. So, any ill feelings or feeling of disappointment from him and his teammates, they have to sort out. But he's not well. He knows what's at stake, what's ahead for him. Hopefully, a lot of football. He came to Ohio State to fulfill that family legacy. And,
Right.
he gave Ohio State 2.2 years of really excellent football, and I think he'll, just like Joe Burrow, I think regardless, I think he'll always be considered a Buckeye.
No doubt. All right, if Cardell Jones comes to mind when this situation comes up, I got nothing against Bosa. I get it. He didn't come to Ohio State to play school, y'all. He didn't. The Bosa family didn't pick Ohio State because of the great academics and because of the great cold weather that they've ever lived in. They came in because of Larry Johnson, Larry Johnson's dad, the defensive line coach. They know that they have one of the premier defensive line coaches in the NFL, in college, to prepare you for the NFL. Nick Bosa didn't go to Columbus to play school, first and foremost. He went there to become the number 1 overall pick in the draft.
That's so true. That is so true.
Just like 90% of the guys that are on the Ohio State roster. That's part of the package of when you're recruited. What I am getting tired of is the layman, us, the lazy radio guy, the guy sitting in the bar that sit there and they make a kid like Denzel Ward look bad. They try to make a guy like Bosa look bad. Let's just be honest, people. If somebody told you your son in 6 months to 7 months with help can become can make $20 million just by signing his name on the line, would you risk anything? That's what these kids. That's what these kids are about. If Bosa was just going to be a 5th-round pick or something like that, then okay, there's something to talk about. These kids, it would be ridiculous for these kids to put themselves out there. The crazy thing is, and I guess I'm asking you this, the circumstances have always kind of been there, but kids now have, it's just like my kids are know how to run computers. I didn't know how to use a computer, how to sign into one, how to do anything until I was 19. My 4-year-old son can bust down and get in our iPad quicker than I can already. Now, that's because he's got his mom's jeans and things of that nature, and he can probably fit in his mom's jeans already, but that's no here nor there. I had to be exact the same. But
maybe that's why he should stick to computers, but go ahead. We'll have that discussion later.
Yeah, that's to 20 years from now. Is it because information is out there? It's always been like this, Zach, but why is it so easy for kids now to say, and I'm not and I got not one bad thing to say about what Bosa's doing. I get it. Kid knows he's going to be a top 3 pick. Why would you? He's got an injury that's a goofy injury. You see now, on one play, things can change. His brother's been banged up his whole career. His dad got banged up his whole career. His brother, his uncle, his knee got snapped in the Super Bowl. Tim Crumrye got snapped in the Super Bowl. He was never in the bone, came through his freaking skin. That family's pretty aware of what this sport will do to you. They know they got money in the bank, and they ain't throwing that away. I don't blame them.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you right now what part of it is the social media age has made it easier than ever for anybody to jump to their conclusion with their opinion, whether it matters or not, right?
Yeah.
Denzel Ward made absolutely the right call, and no one should have doubted it for a second, and I think at Ohio State internally, I don't think they did. I think it was just at the time, A, it was a hot button issue, right. And B, outside of draft rooms last December, nobody knew that Denzel Ward was as good as he was, right? Because even though he played at Ohio State for 3 years, he was only a frontline guy for one. The other frontline guys had been gone, right? And you just you didn't know. And even in those draft rooms, it was like, oh my God, this kid's a dynamite player. We need to do the background. We don't know how big he's going to be, right? We don't know what kind of kid.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
If you listen to AZ podcast, I'm gonna pat myself in the back. If you listen to this podcast leading up to the draft, he was the one name I kept saying.
Yeah, no doubt.
And
I wrote it all.
Only certain people, you're right. Most people did not know he was as good as he was because of all the circumstances you said. But there's one thing. There's certain positions I can look at, and you're like, and you can do it too, where I can go, that kid's going to be different than the other ones. Yeah. You can just tell he's a special athlete.
Yeah. And as far as the circumstances go, Dre, I think guys have gotten smarter to it. I think they understand. I think the argument is out front more. I think regardless if you want to make an argument, inject yourself in it, it's easier to do. But I think guys are understanding, okay, I've put in the work, and when teams do come around and do the work on me, they're going to realize that I am a team player. I am a good guy. People are not going to trash me. I'm doing what's best for me and my family, and I'm sitting this out. And what I told you yesterday when this Bosa thing came down, and congrats, not congrats, because I think the reaction, with the exception of a few assholes, was much more reasoned this time than it has been in the past with previous things. What I said was, okay, this is out there, this is standard, and unless things change, this is fine. My question is, what about when someone skips a playoff game? Right, right now, this Oregon kid, either him or this Justin Herbert, this quarterback, either him or Nick Bosa is going to be the number one pick next April, right? Well, what if Oregon makes the playoff and they got to play Alabama? What if Kyler Murray, who's already gotten or is guaranteed to get $5 million from the Oakland A's, they had the deal, you play football 1 year. What if on January 1st Oklahoma's supposed to play Alabama?
Let me ask you a question. If I wasn't around and my son AJ was in that situation, and I told him, you go to Zach in these situations, what would you tell my son?
Your ass doesn't play.
Thank you. I mean, common sense tells us. You and I both. Common sense says you don't play. Unfortunately, but you know what though? That's what the NCAA has made this, Zach. That's what it is. Like, we're finally cutting. It's just like gambling. Sports gambling is going to become legal for the most part, right? And it's like, well, nothing's really going. You and I'm quoting you. Nothing's really going to change for most people that already have a way to bet on games. Yeah. I'm not quoting you exactly, but you know what I mean. Like, for the most part, that's not going to change anything. Like, NCAA is, and I'm not beating up the NCAA, but it is what it is. And no offense to the games, and no offense to the hardcore Buckeye fan or whoever you're a hardcore fan of that listens to this podcast, but at the end of the day, for that quarterback at Oklahoma State, what does he really gain out of being a national champion or being a runner-up in 2019, considering what he has on the other side of the bridge?
Yeah, and I mean, look, you as you go through this, you make commitments to your team and your teammates, and if you are a national champion or if you're a playoff, like, you will be remembered forever, and there's something to be said for all that.
Yeah.
But
you jump boxes and put gel in your hair. Shout out to my man Dustin Fox doing a great job on the Brown sideline.
Yeah.
You know I love you, brother. You know I love you. But you're right. I mean, it's a part of his life. It'll never go away. You're right. That is.
Right, and so you have to make this decision. See, this is the whole thing, right? I've said this many times. This is a nuanced argument, and people have to understand that the only guys ever making real money are the 1% of the 1%. And that goes for, even if the NCAA was to do the logical thing and say, okay, you guys go ahead and just go out and we'll use the Olympic model, right? We're not going to go into it here.
Right.
Use the Olympic model and go out and make money on your own. Every guy that thinks all of a sudden they're going to be making $60,000 a week, no, they might be posing for posters. The Akron basketball team might be posing for posters for the Portage Lakes Deli, and they're going to get 3 free sub sandwiches out of it. They ain't going to make no thousands of dollars. They ain't going to make no dozens of dollars, right?
Romeo Travis has a better chance of making money in a Zips jersey right now than the current.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so, to every 15-year-old and their dad or third uncle, as Urban calls them, that has their money, their handout, like, pay me because I can dribble a basketball, like, no, you got to be really, really good. And these are incredible experiences that you're going to get. Look, the United States is totally different. I mean, when you are outstanding in another sport over in Europe, like, you go professional at 12, 14, 16. Right? Like, you go the different route. Whether you make it or not, I don't know. I guarantee there's no free college education in there. And I already went further than I wanted to, because I'll say this. You know what my stance is. Although I am for, with the abundance of TV money out there, there has to be more that goes to the players. Whether it's in trusts, whether it's in straight-up cash, whether it's in however it's going to be. However, for that 1% of 1%, the Denzel Wards, the Nick Bosas, the Ohio States, the Alabamas, the Clemsons, the Kentuckys and Dukes in basketball, when all this starts to come at the expense of Akron and Bowling Green and Tiffin and Pitt Greensburg not having sports anymore because there is no way that they can compete with that, then we have failed because of few people that are greedy. So I want all these I want these players to exert every time of the few times that they have the leverage, and I want them to both A, command the spotlight, and B, make every cent that they can. But they have to understand that just because you're good in high school or just because you're good enough to get a scholarship to one of those schools doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to make millions of dollars or even thousands of dollars or even have a chance to play professionally.
Keeping it real with Zach Jets, the Zach Attack. How is my favorite Pitt Greensboro team looking so far?
Well, practice started on Monday, and
practice.
Yeah, and I guess at 8 a.m, Brody called my mom, and she said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm driving around Greensboro looking for a whistle. I lost mine." So I don't think we're off to the most flying of starts.
What the hell is wrong with the Jacksons? Y'all can't keep up with shit.
Hey, you think I'm a slob? You think I'm a slob? You should see how that dude lives.
I know. I've got an idea. I love him. I can't wait till he gets a big time program so I can truly sit on the sidelines and just laugh the whole time. Like they gave you a team.
You are a typical St. V guy. You only come around when things go big time.
Hey. Smucker's going to kick your ass. Anyway.
Hey, you know, I didn't even recall saying that Smucker's thing the other day until my text messages blew up.
You can't go to Orville. You like a black man driving through certain towns, I won't say. You can't drive to that one street town. You done, son. They like me there. I worked at Smucker's. I like them people. I like the jelly. But you ain't going back there, son. Hope you don't plan on going to that game next year. Anyway, I didn't say we should do this, but at the 28-minute mark, I think it'd be a good time, 25, wherever we're at. I think it'd be a good time for a little Askin Jackson, A to Z style.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Let's talk some football.
All right. I think you may disagree, but I think this may have been one of the best starts to the Browns seasons since the ball-headed defensive coordinator for Green Bay was the head coach. Could this have worked out any better with how they started with the quarterback situation? Just knowing everything we know and knowing their record. Going into this game against Tampa, I know you could probably disagree, and I got other questions, and this is an open-ended one. But could things have gone any better for Hugh Jackson in your mind? What could have gone better for Hugh Jackson in your mind, other than winning a couple more games, obviously?
Well, yeah, I mean, when you're leading the league in turnovers, forced and turnover margin through 6 games, you're supposed to have more than 2 wins. Yeah, but as far as getting the elephant out of the room and the years of pent up whatever, getting Baker in spite of yourself, right? Because the whole organization obviously signed off on a plan where he doesn't even get reps in practice, right? And then beating the Baltimore Ravens at home in an early October home game. I agree. Those are all A to A+ things. And there's clear improvement across the roster. There's clear room for improvement with the team. And I think all of us, going back to our discussion Monday and our discussions back to May, Dre would say, let's see a competitive team. Let's see incremental growth in multiple areas, and let's just see a better roster and see how it works out from there. Coaching-wise, quarterback-wise, coordinator-wise, everything. And I think right now you see that there's clearly more pieces to work with, and there's some promise there, and that they're not there yet as a team. However, last week was bad. The offense, after showing some growth, has clearly gone backwards, and as a couple injuries and a couple realities have hit, it's more obvious than ever. You're young, you're thin. And I think a week ago, without a doubt...
It was all good just a week ago.
Well, thank you for this segue, because this is the lead to... This is part of the Askin Jackson column that comes out on Thursday on The Athletic. A week ago, the Browns were the most interesting team in the NFL when you add recent history, number 1 pick, overtime games, all of this. And now the Browns are teetering because if they don't win in Tampa, they're not beating the Steelers. They're not beating the Chiefs, right? That now all of a sudden you're looking at mid-season report card with 2 wins and everybody lining up to fire the coach again.
That's amazing to me, and I don't disagree with you, but it's amazing to me, and this is why the NFL is the NFL, and it kicks ass. I love baseball. I love the playoffs. I love NBA, and it'll be great when I'm 43 and the NBA playoffs start this year. Not the season has started, not other stuff, and I'm 40 right now. But it is amazing to me, and it's just not in Cleveland, how the NFL, how it's it's truly a roller coaster ride for not only the players, the teams, the cities, but how we basically look at teams. Look at what you just said about the Cleveland Browns, and you're not wrong, and you're being honest. A week ago, we were all sitting around here, all of us to a certain extent, because they've for what's happened in the last 4 or 5 seasons, they've given people a heartbeat. They've given them a reason to turn the TV on at 1 o'clock, and that's a huge accomplishment. But now the reality of the league, and that's what I said to you as soon as the game was over on Sunday. It is good reality. This is the NFL. But look at how you list it now. We're at that because you said it best after they beat Baltimore. They had to win one of those games. They won it. But now we're to that. Well, if they don't beat Tampa, and I'm not attacking you. You're right. If they don't beat Tampa, we're all going, well, fuck, Kansas City's gonna put fucking 100 on them. We go right to the bottom of the pit. And like I said, I'm not attacking you. It's amazing the emotional roller coaster you can go through in an 18-week season.
Well, sure. I mean, look, it's important, and I think at the end, whether it ends really ugly, Dre, or whether they make a run at 6 or 7 wins. I don't see that right now, but I think it's possible because the defense has played well enough that they should have more wins than they do. Right,
for sure.
But I think you'll look and you'll say, well, Pittsburgh beat us up but let us back in and we tied. New Orleans, we played well enough to win, we didn't. So, like, when you get to weeks 4, 5, 6, when Water kind of finds its level, for lack of a better cliche, and you didn't have more than one win, and especially when you blew that 14-point lead in Oakland, who might not win again the rest of the fucking season, that's really gonna grate at you because you had those opportunities to get more in the win column. Because let's be honest, if you go through a season and you don't ever win back-to-back games, it's not a success. If you're not 500 in your division, it's not a success. So I said all along, 5 and 11s are not created equal. The Browns are going to be better, and they've shown that they're better. Where it goes, I think this Sunday tells the story. I think next Sunday tells the story. And then after that, there's half a season left, and we'll see where it goes.
Biggest surprise so far this season in your eyes?
Biggest surprise? The defense. I knew it would be good. I didn't think it would be this good. I think Denzel Ward being the big part of that. I think everybody expected Myles Garrett to take a big leap, and he obviously has. But I think positive surprise, Ward. I think positive surprise that Baker, given the circumstances especially, was as ready as he's been. He's not perfect. He's not going to be. But I think he's been really impressive for the most part. He's been hard on himself. But to think that he came in and won that game and then scored 42 in his first start where they intentionally kept him away from the first team offense and from key reps, I think that's really impressive and would go down as certainly a positive surprise.
Biggest disappointment?
That you don't have more wins, that you're in a familiar spot where you don't have any receivers right now. And I shouldn't say any receivers, but where all of a sudden that is maybe your most glaring problem right now, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
I think there's little disappointment. I would just add that to the fact that when you did beat the Ravens, he came out and got flattened the next week. If you lose to the Chargers by 6, it's like, tip our cap to them. That's a really good team. That's a team that could go to Foxborough in January and win. But you lost by 30 instead.
Right. That's a good point. What do you do with the receiving position 2 weeks before Halloween or a week and a half before Halloween? Because I keep hearing people yell and scream. And by the way, we appreciate all the people that listen to the podcast. As a old friend used to say, we're your favorite radio host's favorite podcast to listen to and take information and run with it. Imitation is the highest form of flattery. We don't really give a shit. We know you're stupid anyway. What do you do with receiver? And I'm asking this because in my eyes, I hear everybody and I read crazy ass articles about trading for people that just sign $100 million contracts.
Yeah,
that could never happen. That's right. Something out of Madden. That's nor here nor there. But the Amari, and I'm not talking about Amari Cooper. I'm talking about that freak show in New York. The Amari Cooper thing is sexy. The Raiders situation is screwy, but it's not really realistic. If you're willing to get, it's just not. But they got to do something, right?
2 things to address tweets and radio callers I've seen. One, you just mentioned Odell Beckham is not happening. guys, if the Giants were trading him, they would have traded him. They would not have signed him to that extension. They could not. It would cripple their salary cap, and it would be a total disaster to trade him now. So just get that out of your mind. Any article.
The worst part, people write about that shit and make it like it can really happen.
Right, and that's fiction writing. It's fiction writing.
Yeah.
Yes. And then as far as Rashard Matthews, I mean, he worked out for the Browns. He left. He worked out for the Cardinals. He worked out for the Jets this week. None of the three have signed him. So either mentally or physically or both, he's not ready to help a team right now. So we can't scold the Browns for that either. So as far as in the short term, Dre, they've done what they had to do, which is find Rashad Perriman off the scrap heap. The best of, there's a reason he's on the scrap heap. It's bring up Damari Scott from the practice squad and say, go out there and play, make a name for yourself. The other guys didn't catch the ball. Just catch the damn ball, and we'll see if he can or not. I don't know. I don't know that answer.
Right.
Bigger picture, you have to look at Amari Cooper for a couple of reasons. And I know you guys with your spreadsheets want to cite drop rate and whatever. And look, you would have to ask a question of why this guy 2 years in looked like he was ready for Canton, and a year and a half later the Raiders would trade him. That's a very valid question. However,
he's had games this year where he's looked great again.
Yes. The free agent class is bone dry, and teams, this is why you employ scouting staffs all year long. They have to know what the receiver class looks like draft-wise, because what you're looking at is a Jarvis Landry minus situation where, yes, you will get somebody's problem that they don't want to pay, but barring a total change, it won't be in Landry's league, because it's not going to be Odell Beckham unless he just absolutely blows up to the point that it makes himself toxic like Des Bryant, which is why he's not signed.
Let me throw something in there. It's not a question. It's a question, but it's a statement as well. The one thing I'll say is Dorsey has Green Bay pedigree in his pedigree. Same with Wolf. I don't know how much of the Monday night game you were able to watch. Whenever Green Bay played Monday, Sunday night, they all run together for me nowadays.
Yeah, it was this Monday. Yeah, I watched most of it. Yeah.
Monday, okay, yeah. The receivers he had out there, he came back. He didn't have Geronimo. He didn't have Cobb. They seem to continue to find. Now, it's a way different system, way different situation. Please, I understand that. Don't dumb down what I'm saying because of that part. But it seems like that organization has found a way to continue to find receivers with not big names that fit what they do. I guess what I'm saying is, do we think Elliott Wolf has that same trait about him? Because even the kid from like the kid that's got the crazy dad, that's got the long name, St. Brown.
St. Brown, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the kid is he's got the pedigree. And they got two other brothers that have the pedigree as well. They're coming. It just seems like, for whatever reason, certain teams are able to continue to cultivate wide receivers. The Steelers being one, obviously, and they've done it for decades now, where they just draft guys that fit in their offense and it works, even if it's the fifth round or the fourth round or the second round or the first, as well as Green Bay. Is that something that the Browns have to worry? Like this year is what it is. They're going to have to draft the right guys. And here in Cleveland, we're afraid to draft wide receivers because since '99, it has been it's been all misses, no hits.
Well, I would say the Packers obviously have a track record of finding guys, right, and developing them. I mean, Devontae Adams is a phenomenal player. He's a Fresno State guy, right? Randall Cobb from Kentucky. I mean, Jordy Nelson was a white guy. I mean, that's a strike against you. Let's be honest.
From Kansas State.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
right. Like I can go there where they're from, and it's amazing how they keep getting these receivers back. And I know they've had a great quarterback, and you have a good quarterback now that you can build with. So my point is, rather than getting caught up in all this, do you just take it on the chin and you go out and you just draft 2 or 3 guys next year to build around Landry and build around what you have?
You probably have to. I mean, here's the thing. Like Victor Cruz came out of nowhere. Pierre Garçon came out of nowhere. The common denominator in those guys was they got with the right quarterbacks who threw to the open guy and they were confident, right? And we've seen Baker at this young stage. We've seen him rock bullets, and Ratley and Callaway haven't caught him, right? So
you're right.
The great quarterbacks are, trust their reads and their instincts, and they throw it there, and you get the opportunities to make plays. So that is my thought, and my answer to your question is I think you explore every route, and if Amari Cooper is really available for trade because it can be a multi-year starter for you, I mean, he's a rare size, speed, short area quickness guy, so you have to look at that. But as far as that not being an option, Yeah, you have to keep searching other teams' practice squads and working out 3 guys every Tuesday, and put Ratley and Scott in the game and tell them, guys, you got a chance here to build some rapport and make up. I mean, look, the Browns are counting on Rashard Higgins, and credit to him. He had 2 good games in his first 2 years and didn't look like an NFL player, and this year he has been not only an NFL player but an important player for the Browns. So they got to get him healthy, and he's got to come in and he's got to produce, and he's a restricted free agent after the year. So if he comes in and continues to build that rapport with Baker, the Browns bring him back and he can have a long career.
You know what, the other reason I'm glad you brought that name up, because I feel like the backup quarterback now plays so much into that. The backup quarterback, to me, taking him out to LA and letting them practice with him, it's just easy to kill Tyrod right now. But those type of things you just talked about play into why he was able to grow and why we haven't seen others grow, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I just think as soon as Baker came in, Njoku and Higgins were back in the offense. That's what I think.
All right, here's another one. And this is asking us, tell me if this is legit. I thought the defense looked tired, wore out. I hate calling. We had the quitter conversation. Is the amount of plays from the top-end defensive players, in your mind, playing how they look sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, Schobert said today, he was asked straight up whether the overuse contributed to his hamstring injury, and he said that he's never had a soft tissue injury, so he can't say, and he doesn't think so. But, yeah, I mean, I've said all along, specifically with Ogunjobi and Garrett, given how big and how valuable they are, you need to do something about that. But, yeah, I mean, they've played a lot of overtime. And, look, when you're Denzel Ward, number 1 corner, and Demarius Randall, number 1 free safety, you are going to play 100% of the snaps with very few exceptions. Yeah, and going to overtime is not your fault. Playing 90-snap regulation games is not your fault. But, yeah, I mean, I do think it's a lot, because we know in the preseason these guys don't play anymore, Trey. Camp is not what it was. So every year we talk about the good teams playing themselves into shape, and when I don't care what the data says or doesn't say or who has it. When you play 3 overtime games in your first 5 games, that might pay off for you down the road, mental and physical toughness and conditioning, but it, in the short term, is going to take a toll on guys' bodies. It just is. It's the NFL, and guys get beat on and work extremely hard and play with and against the best of the best. And when you have to go that many snaps in that amount of time, you throw in a Thursday night game, you throw in on the trash field in Oakland, all of that stuff, absolutely, that's been a factor.
All right, we can get off to Action Jackson after this, and this is more of a comment. I think the biggest improvement, biggest surprise for me, has been left tackle.
Yeah, I think the guy's been solid. I mean, teams are attacking him still, and he's another one that can't possibly be in peak physical shape, having missed the time that he's missed and having played, been away from football for 2 years, played 10 games at West Georgia, and now comes into this. But yeah, they trusted his talent and their ability to get him ready, and he is a guy that should be, we'll see what happens, but he is a guy that really should be getting better every single week. And, the line as a whole, I think, has been a little bit disappointing, but the offense has changed. It does take time, and I just think the biggest thing going forward, starting this week, is you saw the Chargers, Dre. Discipline pass rush. Keep it. Don't go take Baker out unless you've got that zeroed-in shot. Stay in your lanes. Limit his viewing lanes, and don't let him get outside. Get on his outside shoulder and make him look the other way, or make him kind of brace for impact, because he's made so many plays and it is so accurate when he's on the run, just because he's used to that. That's what he's always done.
All right. I text you this, and I know people are going to listen to this wrong, and this is why it's great that people try to imitate our conversations on the radio. I text you this, and I'll try to explain it quickly without giving out all the information. What we saw San Diego do was very reminiscent of what the Cincinnati Bengals did to Johnny Manziel. They stayed in their lanes. They didn't overrush. They tried to get pressure up front, and they could do it because they had Geno Atkins. You get a pressure up in his face, and then you keep the outside guys, rather than going up and around and charging like a bat out of hell. You keep your outside shoulder open, and you give him no running lanes. You basically put him you keep him in the pocket. Right. Because the one thing that and I know, and look, I am not comparing the 2 quarterbacks. I'm comparing the defenses that have played against guys that can scramble and can still look downfield. Johnny, obviously, he doesn't deserve even be in the same context. But the defense, to me, what I saw San Diego do was very reminiscent of what I watched Cincinnati do early on to Johnny Manziel.
That takes us right back to the start. That takes us right back to the start of the podcast and being old because you're so fucking old. You're still calling him San Diego.
I thought I said a player's name wrong. Goddamn right, I call him San Diego.
When I was a kid, my dad called Indianapolis the Baltimore Colts. He called them Baltimore every week. When the St. Louis Cardinals moved to Arizona, he called them St. Louis every week.
Right? Yeah, that's where I'm at nowadays. I don't feel bad about that. Damn right, I called him that. That was a fun accent, Jackson. It really was. But here, can I say a couple things?
Well, it's your podcast.
And I know it's. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think there was a lot more positive. I think we're in a more positive state with the Browns than we've been in a long time. And I hate that loss last week has everybody so ready to jump back into I'm about to sound like Phil Savage. So, whoa, here we go. Here we go again.
But Dre, isn't part of that is because nobody has any belief in Hugh, and until further notice, I was going to get to that.
I was going to get to that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of this has been built up with him. Whether we like it or not, ownership has bought in to Hugh. I don't think Hugh gets fired this year unless you get 3 more games like we got Sunday. No matter how much, I think the more people yell and scream on the radio about him, the dumber you look. The guy, they kept him after he lost all but 1 game. Like they obviously see something, or he obviously has pictures that no one else sees. They obviously don't care how he talks to the media, how he lies, how he does whatever everybody wants to say. The people in charge obviously they're not blinded by that, or however you want to look at it. They see something that they didn't see, obviously, with the previous coaches that they've hired. And Lord knows they've hired more than most to only own the team for a little bit over a decade.
They haven't even owned the team for 6 full years till next week.
Look at that. And they've had 7 coaches, right?
Yeah.
6 coaches at least.
Yeah. I mean,
and they're probably paying half of them still as well. Maybe that plays into it. Maybe it does. But we're saying that. What I do, and you remember I caught you a couple weeks ago because you were like, "There's nobody else in the league that would take this guy as our coach," and I was like, but you can drive down 71, and they would. There's something about continuity. I'm not saying it's the best thing, but I would say this. The next time you want to yell and scream, and I'm not saying to use that, but the next time you want to talk about getting a new coach and getting rid of Hugh, I'm all for it if you're willing to have the conversation about how do you not take a step backwards from the teeny steps you've taken forward. And is this team and is this organization in the place to start backing up again and starting all the way over?
I agree,
now,
and that's
if you go out and get a coach that the general manager is with and has worked with in the past, and he can pick off right where you're at and keep going, okay. But very rarely does that happen when a new coach comes in.
Well, I agree. And listen, I don't begrudge or criticize any fan who, after what they've been through, got excited about 2 wins and a tie over 5 games. Because, damn,
no doubt,
compared to the alternative, that's pretty good. And honestly, if you are going to have a season, not losing to the Steelers is a hell of a lot better than losing, right? Like when you look,
no doubt.
When you look at that end record. However, when it comes to Hugh, when it comes to Haley, Greg, what they've built, what they're building, how this team comes together, how it continues to improve, how it has to improve, what the glaring weaknesses are, the judgments, which I think more times than not become evident. I need 10 games, 12 games, 16 games, right? I can't do it in 5. Right. I can't do it in 6.
Right.
So that's what I think. I just think that Thanksgiving and beyond, I think it'll be real clear on the futures of these guys. I think it will.
Very much so. Well, and here's the other thing. How many games I don't even want to say it, but it's true. A lot of quarterbacks don't start every game. That's what I'll just leave it at. And there's a chance if Baker gets hurt, you got to go back to what you were doing. It could get ugly. It could get ugly fast. I'll just say it that way.
Yeah.
It could get ugly. It can get ugly faster than it might have to. And if that becomes the case, then all bets are off. I'm just saying, as long as that kid plays quarterback, as long as the other kid, the number 1 pick from last year, is playing defense and they're 85 to 90% healthy, you should be in most games.
No doubt.
That's the best compliment I can. And if you're in most games, the head coach is going to step.
Hey,
injuries could change things.
no bullshit, no Askin Jackson sarcasm. I expect this team to tie another game. I do.
Me too. Me too. I thought it was 2 weeks ago, to be honest.
Yeah, right. And I mean, statistically, a lot of these defenses they're playing have been awful. Tampa at the front of the list, in Atlanta. I think sometimes it's been circumstantially. I mean, the Steelers had a couple of bad performances and bad stretches. We know traditionally that's been a great defense, even if this doesn't have the personnel as the other ones, right? The Bengals statistically have gotten ravaged. Geno Atkins could be Defensive Player of the Year based on what he's done early in the year, right? Those things kind of balance themselves out, and especially with the weather. The Browns have to do a better job of running the ball, and if that's giving it to the right guy, if that's a line thing, if that's a commitment thing, I mean, they got to keep their defense off the field, and they got to keep their quarterback out of trouble. So the best way to do that is to run the ball, no doubt about it. So look, there's a lot to clean up, and a lot they got to do. I mean, I think at this point, Dre, they are a 3, 4, or 5 win team, but we'll see.
And that's about what we thought all along. But I can see them sneaking out 3 more wins. And that's
more than 2, less than 8 is what I said.
Right. They still have a chance to have a positive season without the record being positive. I would not say that about most teams, but I stand still. When you've had a team that's played as many games as they played the last 2 years with just 1 win, 5 to 6 wins is an incredible turnaround. At
this point, that is a fair both expectation and assessment, and we'll see. We'll see how people feel these next few Mondays and Tuesdays. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, you're right. Well, that's the problem. They have a chance to lose the grip that they have on the fans, because this is how we are. We all have this in us because we're all like, oh, here they go again.
Right.
If they were to get that's why this game is so big. It's so pivotal this week. It's more pivotal for how people look at them in their own town. They go out and beat Tampa. No matter how they beat Tampa, I think can get people back on board. And then you just ride it out. Look, most people expect them to get their ass blown out when they play Kansas City. But shit, Kansas City takes them lightly and don't play defense. Who knows? Maybe it's a 40-30 game and it's exciting enough that it makes you feel good about where they're at. You can still lose and make people feel bad after you've lost the way they've lost the last 2 years.
Or Pat Mahomes could just make you cry for 3 days too. We'll see.
Pat Mahomes gonna make a lot of people cry over the next 10 years, son.
Yes.
I remember Steve DeBerg was a quarterback and had a neck brace.
Hey.
I remember Joe Montana 10, 12 years ago was handing out the very word, and he was like 40 with a broke back.
10, 12 years ago, you old ass. That was 22 years ago.
Hey, man.
It sums up this edition of the A to Z podcast. I ain't going to be real happy if I don't get some dinner soon, so I'm out of here. You can keep talking if you want.
I would, but Konnichiwa, Zach's stomach.
A2ZPodcast.com, Facebook.com/A to Z Podcast. Shout out to Scene, to Honeymoon Girl, to American Fireworks, and to you guys. Probably not Friday, just because we don't like to do these weekend podcasts. It gets lost in the football shuffle, but we'll see. We do have a beat on a couple of guests, and we wanted to make sure we got this one in because we both have some commitments on Thursday. Real interesting, Dre, on the Bull and Fox show on Thursday. Albert Breer, who's as plugged in as anyone, gave 3 suggestions for head coaching candidates should a change come. One was Josh McDaniels, which is controversial but not surprising. One is Lincoln Riley, which is not surprising, would be super interesting on many levels. And the third was Matt Campbell from Iowa State.
Wow. Matt Campbell ready to jump to that. I don't want Matt to do that yet.
Hey,
I like what he's doing at Iowa.
Speaking of, going back to your original discussion on quarterbacks and recruiting and the value of one and all that.
Yeah, look at this situation.
Right. Well, remember when we had Kyle on and we talked about his whole journey and how he got the 6th year of eligibility when A, no one expected it, or B, no one had ever expected him to be playing. Let me tell you how this business goes. Kyle gets the official word like on a Wednesday, and for 3 weeks had to sit on it because Matt's recruiting another quarterback and didn't want to lose him because Kyle was going to be there another year.
Wow.
That's how the business goes. That's how the business goes.
That's the business.
That's the business. We'll be back with more business next week. Thanks for listening.